Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Higher Density Living with me, Jason, and we have a special guest today,
Yes, excited.
Tim Hinchliffe, all the way down in Colombia. He is an editor at the Sociable, and you can find that at sociable.co.co. And he really piqued our interest with an article he had written 3 years ago. So we came in and we hammered Tim and we were like, hey, we understand it's been some time, but we really want to bring you on to talk about this because what you said was frankly timeless. And so, Tim, please join us. Please say hello to the listeners out there, and let's kind of dig into this article you wrote, the history, how you got into it, things of that nature around AI and the Law of One.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for having me on here. This is really a treat. I'm looking very much forward to this discussion. Something really interesting for me, and it's incredible. Yeah, you found this after 3 years and still being relevant.
Yeah, no, it's like when you talk about something that the Law of One, if it's truly law, it's something that's essentially timeless. And Jason and I, we talk a lot about technology and artificial intelligence, regarding how we design algorithms and things of that nature. But the function of intelligence, like you stated, without consciousness or soul, then is it truly intelligence? So what I'd like to do is I'd really want to kick it off with the journey of how you came across the Law of One material, and then how you came to this sort of understanding or thought within your own mind around intelligence without consciousness.
Right. So the my introduction to the Law of One was it was David Wilcock, the author. So I had read. It was either the source field investigations or the synchronicity key, which I don't remember which one I actually saw it in first, but it was something that he kept referencing. And so I wanted to find out a little bit more about it because I don't know, it just seemed something that was out there and but really interesting. So I went and found the books online. They're all for free. You can download the PDFs. And so I just started reading them and just got blown away, just line by line. I'm like, I can't believe it said this, it said this. And then it started backing up, you know, um, other things I had read on philosophy, on mythology, on histories, archaeology, just so many different things, psychology, that it was something that just resonated on so many levels.
I totally hear that. And so, that resonation is the thing that's important. So when we talk about, these sort of subjects on higher density living, it's about finding that resonance with that listener. It's not so much of the fact that we are trying to tell them what to think or how to act, what to do, but allowing them to find that power within themselves through their own consciousness to make an intelligent decision that creates that experience and that evolution of life. And the discussion around, nature, these natural laws, creation, spirit, consciousness, you know, the Law of One and speaking with the social memory complex was almost like this refreshing, shower that you got of information where you're like, wow, that has some really deep seated truths. And for whatever reason, it feels right. And then when you go to test it, it also stands its own ground every single time. So if we could even ask you, Tim, like, what is it about how you see applications of the knowledge that is found within the Law of One into our modern technology?
That's a good question. So the law of one, it's about well, there everything is one. There is no separation, duality. That's illusion, and so we also have free will, and there's also polarity. So in the design of technology with regards to the law of one, it's for me, I mean, you can do whatever you want. Developers can be service to others, service to self. They may think they are being of service to others, but who are those others they're being service to? Is it for, you know, uh, you know, prosperity of all, or is it for a select group of people? So in the design and development of technology, um, I don't really see a whole lot of. It's not so much that it's negative or something needs to change there. I see more of a governance thing than the actual development of technology. All about how it's used. I mean, you can get, we have a hammer. You can build a house with it, or you can crack someone's skull open with it. So, I mean, it's
Sure.
Mm.
capable of doing these things, but it's how it's being used. So if you're developing the technology, I'm pretty sure that, I haven't really spoken to a whole lot of developers on this. So, if you're aware that this technology, like you think you're doing something for good, and this can help out a lot of people, which is probably true, but also being aware, just this awareness of how it can be used for bad, and whatever company, organization, government you're developing this for, being conscious of how they're going to use that. Um, I think is important. But of course, there are a lot of organizations that are compartmentalized as well, where you might be working on a small thing over here, but you don't know what's going on the other side. So that's also something to keep in mind as well.
Tim, I wanted to ask you, on your article, you talk about that, the biggest fears of AI, and then you get into like, military industrial complex with the weapon systems and government.
Mm.
What are some of these fears that you're seeing, that you feel like a collective conscious could solve?
Um, for a collective conscious to exist, first of all, I think that has to come about through people's own free will. I'm not a fan of top down, people telling people what to do in order to or achieve this thing. I think it should be some kind of organic thing naturally. But to get
I
back to
think
your
that's why you're in Colombia.
yeah. Um, so I'm sorry, what was your question again? I sometimes go off a little bit.
No, no. Whenever we're looking at these fears, and I think we could go in that direction.
Oh
When you're
yeah.
looking at and with raw teaching with free will and the fear.
Mm. And so in automation, so you know, if you're coming from a place of fear, if you're doing something, it's about intention. What's your intention? What it's about, right intention. If you're coming from a place of fear, like I got to do this, otherwise, the adversary, someone else is going to do it. It's going to happen anyway. So it might as well be us. There's this push, towards always progress, technological advance, or getting more profits or whatever. Just trying to get more power, more money, more functionality, more whatever. But I'm kind of reminded of Jurassic Park, the movie, where he says, Jeff Goldblum's character says, "Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should." So, if there were more of this harmony of this collective consciousness and a collective will towards something that's not coming from a small group of powerful people who want to manipulate, then I think change could happen very quickly. But we have so many different distortions going on in this reality, so many different messages, so many, there are genuine people,
Mm.
people who just want to manipulate, that it's so difficult to tell. And one of the best, defenses is to know thyself. If you know yourself and you know what you're capable of, others are capable of, if you want to share compassion, love, and light in the world, then go ahead and do it. There's always going to be darkness. There's always going to be negativity. You cannot have light without dark, good without bad, hot without cold. So there's always going to exist. And so what I try to do, what I see in the world is if something is getting too polarized on one end, if it's negative, then just trying to balance that out with something else. That can apply to a lot of things. That can apply to free speech, combating speech with more speech. It can be applied in so many levels.
Well, if you think about it in your stance, I mean, you're an editor.
Hmm.
So what you speak about is trying to actually strike that balance. And it's not so much a function of coercion, but truly reporting on something for what it is, to write about the truth of that thing so people can make that decision for themselves.
Correct.
And when you make the statement about, fear towards AI, it's not really the AI that the fear is towards.
No,
It's
no.
really a function of having a fear towards human beings who design that artificial intelligence, being people that would even, program in some sort of function to say, oh, we want to split people up into these specific groups or control them in this specific function.
Hmm.
It lacks that unifying principle, right? And there's
Right.
nothing really humble about it. There's no real awareness or, evolutionary step in the technology if it's still used in a sense of control and doesn't really look at the real value of what a human being is or what it means to be a human being. Wouldn't you say?
Exactly. Yeah. And when you said how, not to tell people what to do, in my reporting, I try to go right to, the sources and the truth of something, and show something. And it's interesting because I can see that in some of stories I do on, on big groups, uh, who want to control things and manipulate, I show things, and the responses I get either on social media or people writing to me in messages and things is that like sometimes it'll go way off to one side, the response, they take this out of it, sometimes they take this out of it. And so that's when I know I'm kind of doing a good job in the sweet spot there. If I'm not trying to impose my will too much, even though there is a part of that in there, that I'm trying to show something, of course, and tell a story. But if I just put it in a certain way, then people are going to take it the way that they see it, and I find that to be more beneficial, because even if I wanted to say something and make a certain point, but someone took it the other way with the information that's given, that's their free will. They can do that, and I wouldn't try to tell them not to do that or anything else. I totally believe in choice, and also that comes also responsibility as well. When we talk about technologies and things and how people want to people may fear AI or whatever, they fear the people behind it, um, and people just want to be safe. No, ordinary people want to be safe, but they want, in order to be safe, secure, and things, they're willing to give up more of their own their own liberties and things, which yeah, I'm not too, I don't agree with too much.
Well, go ahead.
No, Tim. I wanted to get into this because in the article, because I feel like we need to create a distinction now and people to understand this. And I think you articulate it perfectly. Is according to the law of one, the difference between humans and AI?
So I mean, they talk about, which when the law of one talks about kind of energy centers and different colors, that's hard for me to grasp. But for me, fundamentally, I think what the law of one is saying is that if it doesn't have an organic heart, if it doesn't have that green energy ray, then it's without soul. It's without, it can't. It's like a golem, like those
Right,
from
right.
Jewish mysticism. It's just a soulless thing, a tool, basically. Which it should. I mean, it is a tool, but so I mean, if you're trying to give it, I don't see it as being it can't be something that's conscious, um,
Mm,
because it's just it's wiring, it's machine, it's something that's kind of. And then also in the algorithms, almost algorithms to me are like magical incantations. They produce magic, um, and so I don't know. I lost my train of thought there with the what we're trying to achieve
No,
here.
no, no, no. What I was talking about is if you talk about like third density, fourth density,
Mm,
and then understanding humans. And I wanted people to understand that in case they may have never, maybe they're coming through this from the artificial intelligence side, but they don't understand because a lot of people, and there's even legal questions to whether once AI gets to a point, whether we like how we do with corporations,
mm,
LLCs, we consider them human. Would we consider AI to be human, and that's kind of wanted because you made a clear
right.
distinction in your article on that.
Right. I don't. Yeah, I don't think so. But it's not a human thing. It doesn't have compassion. It doesn't have love. It's a logical, cold, calculating thing, and it's programmed by whoever programs it and what does what they want it to do. The tricky, confusing, weird part to me is the idea of hybrids, of
Mm,
infusing humans with AI, because then if you're talking about illegal things, who is responsible for what? Um,
yes,
so I mean, even if you talk about something like a prosthetic limb, like a hand or something, um, if it's a machine thing, if it's using algorithms and sensors attached to you, and you go to reach for something, shake someone's hand or something, and you crush their hand accidentally or so with this prosthetic thing, whose fault is that? Is that yours? Is that the machines? Is it the companies? And then if you actually take that further, and you talk about kind of stuff like Neuralink, Elon Musk Neuralink, and infusing
right.
AI into the body, then yeah, I don't even know where to begin with that, because that can mess with your, I mean, your cognitive abilities. It could be like considered almost like a drug or something, but it's something way far out there, that it just boggles my mind to kind of think through those loopholes, or how that, who was responsible for what. I wrote one story called "The Ubermensch and the Cuckoo's Nest" a while back, after a dream I had about this, because I had a dream that there was this whole psychological ward of the future where people were there because of their AI infusions, their implants, or their mesh of AI inside their bodies, and they didn't know how to handle it. So to me, I saw it as like some kind of shamanic journey in this dream that I had, and they had to have entire hospitals dedicated to helping people get over this, because in the future they're talking about being able to download memories, of other people, and this whole idea of identity, of who you are, what's your place, like the separation between. I mean, this is getting back to the law of one again. Like, then maybe there is no separation, but I mean, you can go insane with that. I think um, we're limited in our physical abilities, and if all of a sudden we get these superhuman powers, then who knows where that will go.
Do you think, last question before I hand it over to Alex, do you think that AI would help us, especially when you're thinking of telepathy, from third density to fourth density? Do you think it will actually help us? Or do you think, like you said, AI is going to end up imposing on our free will?
It can help, and I think in a rise in a different density. But I mean, according to the law of one itself, I mean, the technology isn't necessary. It's all about it's consciousness and intention and love and compassion if you're going to be service to others.
Hmm.
So I mean, and they talk about civilizations that have come before that, especially here in South America where I am. They talk about how they're able to progress without any really high functional technology. It was more spiritual based. And so, to answer your question, yeah, I think AI. It's already. I mean, right now, what are we doing? The internet, technology, work together talking about this. I learned about the law of one through technology because I downloaded the Kindle book. I listened to YouTube podcasts and things. So it brings you together in that way. And if the idea is for a social memory complex, it's where everyone comes together in the same what is it wanting to do the same goal
Right.
spiritually. Then yeah, but but it also can go really wrong as well. I don't have too much faith in those that control it at the moment. The people who make it, I have to distinguish between like the developers and the people they work for, because I actually don't know how much the developers are conscious of what they're doing and how this can be really bad. I think they're aware, but it's just about how it's used. So the AI, yeah, I am not too confident with our current society, the way it's governed at the moment, that it will bring a rise in consciousness and into the fourth density. I actually think more like I think it'll take some kind of external force, because right now I think it just seems like we are. I don't know whether it's through technology or if it's through media or if it's through even just this whole past year of things. There just seems to be more control, more manipulation. That's what the technology is used for, and information in general. That I'm not too confident in it. So yeah, I think it can. AI and technology can help propel society. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but our society is so interwoven and intertwined in it that it's here. We can't ignore it.
No, and when I look at that technology, I think it's more of a function of like a projection of the mind.
Mm.
So if you really do have a very balanced thought, a thought that is extremely applicable, you have the choice to use it in a very negative intention or a very positive intention. So you know that you're on the path of creating things that can truly be evolutively beneficial, but we have made a lot of choices to use those in a more negatively oriented manner that is actually inhibiting our evolution, even our spiritual evolution. So if you consider the aspects and the laws within, the law of one, and you apply those things, to an algorithm or our technology designed in any way, shape, or form, well, then you have the free will through that technology to either bend people to your will or let them create their own future. And I think that we have the right things. We just need to retune them to use them properly. And for most developers, they're quite agnostic. I mean, you join a company, you don't want to lose, the amount of pay that you have, whether it's a solid six-figure salary and you have all these benefits. you name it. But the real question is, do you want to continue to look at the value of what it means to be a human being, or how you can help other human beings with this technology, or use it just for the good of the company itself? And, those are those sort of double-edged swords. Even if you considered, genetic engineering, you can either use it to make yourself look young, you can use it to harm people and have them die sooner, or you can have it with a longevity of life, where you can increase the nutrient density of your foods. But those are the choices we need to make when we're confronted with these steps in technology as we are evolving to move to those next phases of that density. And that takes that understanding, that takes that deeper aspects of empathy and knowledge of the other selves, rather than just selfishly taking that path for you and say, how can I just use this for my benefit?
Yeah, I would say that with respect to developers and technology in general, it would be to develop something like you mentioned that gives people the choice of bettering themselves, their community, something around them. If it's designed and built with only like a certain function in mind, this is to control this, this is to manipulate this, um, then yeah, that's definitely not. I don't think that's a good path to go on. So giving people a choice. I mean, people always have a choice whether to give it to them or not. um,
Right.
and so it's what they decide to do with it. If as long as your technology and what you're putting forward has that intention and those functions of empowering whoever it's meant for, then I think that's a good way to go. And like you said, like they can use it. Whoever is receiving it also has that free will to do bad or whatever. But as long as the intention is there, I mean, you'll never stop bad. So it's necessary part of everything. So that's one of the hard truths that I had to, um, which it took me a while to realize. It's that whole polarity thing and no duality, that you can't have one without the other. So yeah, the basic thing is of empowering people. But then even then, um, words like that, empowerment, over time, these things start to lose meaning with some groups of people as well, because we want to empower this people or this people. And then there's more separation, more division. This group needs to be more empowered. This group is less empowered when we're all just one. So changing definitions also muddle things as well.
I think you're exactly correct. And the profession you have chosen is a very old profession, being an editor.
Mm,
You're scribing stories, you're scribing knowledge, whether it be truth or myth, you name it. People are going to read that. They have a reliance on this information that you could sit there and really write lies all day long. And they have the choice to believe that lie. But the question is, what part of that polarity do you want to come here with the equalizing format and really want to do that good? Because a pen for you is just as much of a tool as an algorithm is through AI on some sort of server,
mm.
is it not?
Yes. I always, words have power, and like I said before, like algorithms and code and stuff like that, to me is just, it's magical incantations. You create reality through these things. And so with my profession, I get so, when I write, yeah, truth. But I mean, what is truth? So I try to write things that are most accurate, and whatever sources I cite, all the sources, and then, but a lot of it comes from, myself as well. Rationalizing and or in sometimes intuitively doing things, but everything in context. So yeah, this a lot of times what I do is my process is, after I finish an article, do all the editing, and after I publish, I feel this enormous responsibility. Every night there's some, I go back after publishing, I always think like, oh my goodness, did I put this part in there? Did I delete this part? Did I do that? Is the whole thing complete? Like, did I miss something so huge that this is going to be, am I going to mislead anyone in any way? I'm so conscious of not misleading people that it's kind of nerve wracking at times to me, because I want to be so absolutely fair and accurate.
No, but what you're talking about is that empathetic idea of really understanding the other selves, not ignoring their emotions or how they're going to receive it. You're thinking beyond the self. And
Yeah.
that is the first stage of mastery of your own consciousness. And I know you talked about this too. This was, I think, one of your last sentences that said, maybe if we become masters of our own consciousness and fully realize our own potential first, then maybe we can create an AI with a soul or a consciousness. Well,
Mm.
it's the same, whether you're creating an AI or you're manufacturing a car or you're writing an article, you first have to have your own mastery of understanding the self. And then that will translate very truthfully into how that is going to push that technology or that idea or that story out to someone else. And then you will know in your own comfort that you have written with balance. You have written with love and understanding, and you've shared that light, that knowledge with others for them to receive and choose to do with what they choose to do with it. And I think that's a very interesting point here. It's not just the fact of the artificial intelligence that you talk about, but it's the fact of creating anything. And
Mm.
when you go share that creation, that you really understand how it is being shared and being received.
Right. I mean, one of the goals of it all, I think, is to become the creator. And so it's just if you don't know yourself, then you don't understand others because what we're one and the same. So, no, and that's not just knowing the good stuff. Like, know what you're capable of, of doing good. It's knowing like all the anything in your past that you've done, any just thoughts that have popped in or not that you thought about something that was negative or embarrassing or something like that. It's knowing that all of that is part of you. So when people say, it's human nature to do this, human nature to do, well, it's human nature to do anything. So and if you understand the whole spectrum of it, then you understand yourself. Yeah.
I think that's the quote, know yourself, accept yourself, become the creator.
Right. That's it.
And that is in so many different variants and forms. That's all that's being stated in this material over and over and over and over. And you create that good material, you create those good articles, you create that good speech, whatever those things might be, because you knew yourself first. And once you really know yourself deep down at the core, you can accept it for what it is. And when you can be accepting of yourself, you can be accepting of others. You can be accepting of other ideas, choices that other people make, rather than forcing them into boxes or saying we need to use AI to control them to do a specific thing because we think they're out of control, because we don't accept their nature. We
Mm.
don't want to put them on a path of their own evolution. We want to forcefully evolve them how we want them to look.
Yeah.
And that's it's coercion at that point. It's a lack of respect for that free will. What you're doing is you're creating an AI that is distorting.
It is. And then, it's hard to, when I see these things, I always think about polarity. So if there's an attack, if there's something that's going against my free will, that's going against my choice, like if there, then I have responsibility to myself and others, because we are the same, to counteract that. So I think a lot of people, I mentioned this earlier, that just they'll might be upset that but they don't take any action against anything. They don't defend themselves. They don't they don't take responsibility for themselves, the groups, the whole community, the world as a whole. They just they want someone else to do it for them. And so one of the things I question a lot is, though, in my line of work, like I actually question, what am I doing to be of service to others, and the thing is, I keep saying, like, you can't just talk about it. You got to do something. But that's exactly what I'm doing, is talking about it and writing about it. So I'm always questioning if I'm really doing enough, and then also to learn about others, and to see if my writing is imposing on their free wills in such a way that I haven't thought of, and better to know myself. I sometimes post articles I've written in various Reddit groups that I don't really know about, but it's some kind of, either it's a political ideology or some other type of ideology, social ideology, just to see, you know, if my message is resonating with them or not. And I can see, right away, I find out more about a wider audience by all the negative feedback. Well, it's not negative to me. It just helps me understand more. Um, when I see all these different opinions and sometimes abuse being hurled. But a lot of times it just proves the points that I've been trying to make in the article. So it's a really great learning experience for me.
Tim, you talk on the article, you say this: artificial intelligence can mimic many human behaviors.
Mm.
It may be very convincing now or in the near future, but it cannot consciously feel emotions. And we've all seen the movie Ex Machina,
Mhm.
and we know that whole story with that. You get into the physical, organic heart and universal love. Can you explain that?
You still there, Tim?
Yeah, sorry, it went out for a sec. Now I can hear you again.
Isn't that funny? It's like every time we talk about the law one, it's either cutting our camera out like it did here,
Right.
right? Or there's some sort of technological failure. It's like someone
It's
doesn't
the
want us to
Orion
talk
group.
about it. It's the Orion group. Every time we bring it up on the podcast, we're always getting shut down. But yeah, can you talk about what Jason was, speaking of in the article about that organic heart?
I
We're
didn't hear the
talking.
question though. I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So you said this in an article. Artificial intelligence can mimic many human behaviors and may even be very convincing now or in the near future, but it cannot consciously feel emotions. And we've all seen Ex Machina, the movie. We've seen the manipulation with AI. I think that plays out perfectly with understanding love. But you talk about physical, organic love and universal love and compassion in AI. Can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's compatible. According to the law of one readings, it just says that without an organic physical heart, that's where love, light, and all this is I'm not created, but like received and sent out again. So that it emanates, it pulls in and gives out. So um, without that, you can't have the compassion and the love and I don't think it's not beneficial for society. So just on a basic level, if it's not organic, I don't know what it is about organic that just carbon based, whether it's carbon based or not. I don't know about alien if it's on some other planet not carbon based, but here on Earth, carbon based things that are organic. But then also, it's not just that; it's whatever density you are as well in consciousness. Because I mean, plants are organic. Now, I believe that there's intelligence in plant life and things, but you just don't know. A lot of people, I guess, we don't really know how to perceive it, maybe. But also, there's more
Mhm.
elemental things like rocks, and whatever. But the thing is, with something that's a machine, it doesn't have, and if it's not in a lower density things like rocks, without the heart, um, without this love, this consciousness, it just can't have it. I don't think. But the thing is, where
Yeah,
where I say that with the technology, like maybe we can create something like this, is that even in the Law of One books, they said, I think it was the people from, they talk about the people either from, was it Lemuria, Mu, or was it the Atlantean one they
Yeah,
talk about,
Lemuria.
is that they were able to create life. I don't know, so it's so I don't know what they used, if it was technology or if it was some kind of other thought, spiritual thing to do it. I don't know. It doesn't say, but I keep the possibility open. I see how technology progresses. We've seen this throughout all of history. Things that a couple years ago or decades ago seemed like science fiction or impossible, or everything's coming true. So I don't know the mechanism, how it can happen. Um, but they talk about creating life, but I'm saying, like, if you do use this with an AI and it's just intelligence and it's just a program, then it doesn't have the compassion of an organic soul and heart.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get into that in the article about AI human hybrids.
Hmm. Yeah, the hybrids. Again, that's, I look to mythology as well. I look to religious texts, and everything just kind of resonates the law of one on this too. It's just that, actually, no, I didn't. I don't. Not with the law of one on hybrids. I don't remember much about hybrids in there, but it seems like it's something. A hybrid is something that wants to be something else, but it's not. It's kind of
Yes.
not here nor there. It's kind of an outcast, misplaced thing. Like, it doesn't have an identity, which according to law of one, everything everything is one. There's only identity, and without the identity, then it just kind of wanders, or it's being very easily controlled and manipulated.
Well, I think it's lost because in a sense it lacks an identity.
Hmm.
Because when you look at a human being, it has the consciousness, it has the spirit, it has the body. But then if you leave something that doesn't have that final piece to it, well, then it's essentially out of balance. Like a stool's got to stand on three legs. If you're doing a three-legged stool, it's going to need that to support itself. Otherwise, you're always going to be trying to balance and figure out what side you need to be on. And it lacks that stability. It lacks that internal knowingness. So even if you are creating that life, unless it has the ability to inhabit all the characteristics of creation itself in the sense of its unity, and then store that as that energy mechanism of the spirit and drive that information into the consciousness so that it can will that hybrid body to move. Unless that is there, then it will never be able to actually find that deep rooted sense of value within the self. And it will constantly be in that search of wanting for more, and left wanting for more, the things that root things in aggravation,
This
violence, jealousy, all those things.
this makes me think of I think what Jason was asking about with about ascension, going from third to fourth density. I mean, this could be something hybrids. If there's some kind of, it depends on where the signal is coming from. I imagine if we were all in the same type of frequency, we could have, maybe for a social memory complex, we could be heading towards a certain direction. But again, if it's a hybrid, where's that signal coming from? What's the frequency? Is it coming from universal consciousness, like infinite intelligence or intelligent infinity, or is the signal coming from this, the AI itself, like say, which is coming from the humans who created it, saying do this, do this, do this, like almost like some kind of little mini mind control subliminal thing, dictating your life. I think it was Carl Jung who said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll control your life, and you will call it fate.
How was
And so that,
serendipitous? We were actually just talking about Jung in a prior podcast.
ah, yeah, I love Jung. I love I read another book by, I think, one of his proteges called Eric Newman, which is The Origins and History of Consciousness as well. Great stuff.
Yeah, because in that initial thought, like Ra even spoke about, it's that thought that is the key driver of all things. And then when you think to yourself, oh, if I am unlimited, then you start to put a limitation because the thought limits it. And so if you're going to
Mm.
actually create a true intelligence, a true living being, it has to have that capacity for intelligent infinity within it. But if you're already programming our current understanding of artificial intelligence and algorithms, it's already a self-limiting factor. So it can never have that fullness of regular life.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so if you put that reliance on something that can never truly experience the fullness of life, that relative absolute perfection, because it's always stuck in a world of imperfection, then you're already inhibiting, these hybrids into the future. That means, will these things truly evolve into something else? Well, who knows? But I can just tell you that what you would have to fear is to say that these are the things that truly define life, but really they're completely limited in their capacity to do so.
And when I talk about the signals, and you're talking about thinking as well, I think I even put a question in the article as well. Where does a thought come from? That was that was a weird. It was one of those times where I got stuck in a rabbit hole in my own head of thinking about thoughts. Getting really meta, and then looking at in, intelligent, infinite. What is it? Intelligent infinity, and that's kind of saying, like, the energy, the consciousness is all around us. It's not an epiphenomenon of the brain. It's not generated in the brain. The brain acts more like a receiver. So in that line of thinking, then, whatever thought enters your head, is that yours? Or is that coming from a more universal consciousness? Is that coming from a dark group somewhere else? I mean, that's what it fascinates me, because it makes me look back at once again, mythology, and then religious texts as well, looking at the archons, the jinns, the the negative entities that are kind of like what they call them, vampires, energy
Yeah.
vampires and things. And I completely, I'm I all those make sense to me, because I experience those things in dreams, and other, and I'm in Colombia here, where there's an array of plant medicines as well. And I've just had downloads come into me under the altered states of consciousness. It could be through a dream, it could be through meditation, but through other means as well. And, I didn't think I can't take credit for some of these things. I mean, one thing a mushroom said to me once was, "A question is a seed. Plant it. Its fruits shall be your answers." Like it was one of these. It's like a download thing where that's not my thought. Where did that come from? And so I guess, but knowing, there's consciousness, there's energy, there's intelligence all around. It makes sense to me, but also I don't know who's saying that. I'm not saying there's just one source for that. Like, again, there could be a negative group, a positive group, or whatever. It's a mystery to me.
But I think like if you take a mushroom and you chose that, you made that decision to take that. And then from there, that can open up an avenue to creation, through plant medicine. But when we look at social media and we think of a thought, and then we see these social media companies imposing on your free will through thought, and I don't know if you're understanding. Do you see that? I mean, with these algorithms and this artificial intelligence, do you see more of this, prisoning, if you want to use the word,
Oh,
our thought?
definitely, definitely. It's manipulation on such a huge scale that it's even. I mean, there's even changing definitions of words. You know, um, and to me, again, that's their, who's doing the manipulating. That's their free
Mm,
will to do so. So, it's not a paradox. So where I struggle though in understanding it is, what can I do? What can we do? How do you balance this? How do you get on the polar? They say polarization is bad. Like social media is the polarizing force.
mhm.
True, but also, is there something wrong with polar? I mean, it lets you see the spectrum, but again, if they are controlling the information, if it's only being one-sided thing, there is an agenda. Um, what's the solution? What's a counterbalance to it is what I'm trying to do. I mean, here now, us talking, articles I write, but it's happening, and people want. It's funny that, depending what side you're on, for no a lot of, well, politically, both sides are going after social media, but for different reasons. One side wants more speech, one side wants more censorship. Um, you know, and to me, how do you navigate this world? It goes back to knowing yourself and then spreading and sharing, your truths, I guess. It's a phenomenal. I don't claim to have all the answers. It's a huge thing that's happening, and what I'm trying to do is, polarize it.
No, and I think that's wonderful. And then, so I would ask you this one thing, because very few people get this opportunity, and the opportunity to go back and say, well, one, because you already posted the article on the internet, but if there was something else you could say about it, now that you've gone back and looked at it 3 years later, what is it about it that you would critique or want to leave as an additional message to those that have read it and are hearing you right now on this podcast?
Very good question. Thanks. Yeah, I always constantly look back on things I've written, to see if really is this holding up. Did this age well? And my critique on this Law of One Piece is that I didn't really go into the governance of technology. I didn't go into motivations and manipulation much behind it. I was, during that time 3 years ago, I was looking at AI more of through the lens of, it's just something that's happening. It's being created, and I was worried about and thinking about, and then also, that's part of a projection as well on my part, which I'm trying to, um, which I'm always trying to monitor, is that, my concern was more on the, having AI become self-aware, becoming its own thing, and becoming out of human control. Now I'm actually, after these years more doing research and writing and reading and everything, it's not so much the technology, it's the people behind it.
That's really amazing. Well, everybody, this was Tim Hinchliffe, editor of the Sociable, down in Colombia, and regardless where you are in the world, your thoughts are that important, and we were, honored to have you here on the show, Tim. So thank you for giving us the time and sharing your insight and your own story, and every bit of educational material you can. And we love the fact that you continue to be so public with your thoughts and your writing. It's a very commendable job, and we're here to support you into the future.
Wow, thank you so much. This has been an incredible experience. I've had a blast. Thank you so much for setting this up.
And Tim, if somebody wants to look at the articles that you write or wants to know more, what is the best way for them to either reach out to you, like we did, or to read more about this?
Yeah, I don't mind giving out my email, tim at sociable.co, to get a hold of me. Or if you want to read the articles, just go to the Sociable and sociable.co. It's not it's sociable.co. And yeah, I set up all the banners, and the menus and categories and things you want to look at. But just if you look at the articles, click on my name, you'll see them there.
Amazing. Well, listen, thank you again, Tim.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you so much.